Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, Pat and James discuss the question, can constraints, yes constraints, release creative flow? Take one.
Oh, hey James.
Yes, Pat.
Oh, geez. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. But you know what? I'm a little stuck.
Are you? On what?
Yeah.
What are you stuck on?
Well, I'm working on this trundle thing, right?
Mm,
And I found that when you're sort of like starting to midway, the writing that's when it's the hardest,
yeah.
right? Because you have nothing but ideas
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're gonna try and experiment with and everything like that. And once you start to get closer to the finish, it's like you start out with a gigantic pile of rocks, right? And
Mm-hmm.
slowly have picked away and pulled away the rocks. It's so by the time you get to the end of it, the pile's so small that you don't have as much decisions to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like I'm stuck in that, what do I do next? I have all these great ideas. I have all these decisions that I need to make, and I'm not landing.
So, okay. Well, this is interesting because I kind of find by the time you get to the end of some things, you've made so many decisions that you only have a few choices left, right? So there's certain
Yeah.
constraints actually, and
Huh?
I personally, think if you're struggling with any creative work, you might think about um, using constraints. Constraints as
Ah,
in restrictions on certain parts. You know, you can pick whatever it is. So you could use, for writers, often use length as a constraint. You know, flash fiction, right? If under
yeah.
100 words, you got to tell this, this, this. You got to have the story, or
Hmm.
or poetry forms. There's the villanelle. It's a very specific form. By the time you've
Right.
incorporated all the elements of the form that you need to have, so many decisions have been made. Or
Hmm.
you can use time as a constraint. So the three-day novel is a classic for that. It has to be a
Yeah.
novella length, so it has to be between, let's say, 20 and 40,000 words. You have to write it in 72 hours. Those are the only constraints. And another one is materials. Let's say, um, like if you're a visual artist, what if you can only use pastel for a particular work, or you can only
Hmm.
use charcoal, or
Hmm.
and just to go back to form, even for visual artists, I'm thinking sculptures. You can't make a sculpture of everything. You have to
Right.
choose.
Right.
You got to choose what you're
Yeah.
doing. It doesn't have to be figurative or figural or whatever the word is for, it doesn't have to be a human or an animal or anything like that. Abstract sculpture, you still have to choose. What is
Right.
it? It's not everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, it doesn't just happen. And so I like this. One of the things, there's a certain counterintuitiveness perhaps, because I think, you get a lot of advice generally that says think broadly, think big, think expansively, bring everything in kind of thing. And
Yeah.
what you're saying is no, let's set some guardrails, let's set some limits
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Because I would say, halfway through, so I understand what I'm trying to do at its highest level,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to, it's not like I'm trying to figure out a voice or something like that. But but I can think a little bit more narrowly and try some different experiments, perhaps.
Yeah. Even setting constraints for yourself on, let's say you've heard of the A to Z. It's one of the exercises I use sometimes when I'm teaching fiction. Okay, well
Yeah, yeah.
you write a story in 26 sentences. Each
Hmm.
sentence has to start with the next letter of the alphabet. So it can go, the first sentence could be A, and then the next sentence has to start with B, the next one C,
Right.
next one D. Or you can do it the other way around. Start with Z, and then whatever the
Hmm.
next Y, and Y, and then X, and so on. So there's two other restrictions and an allowance. The the first restriction, of course, is the 26 sentences with consecutive
Uh-huh.
letters. The second restriction is one of the sentences has to be over 100 words.
Right.
The third restriction is one of the sentences, it can be more than one, has to be one word.
Ooh.
And then the allowance is that the X can be the sound X, like excited. It doesn't have to be a word that starts with X, like
That makes sense.
Xerox or, X-Acto
Yeah.
knife. Wait, yeah.
I would say too, if you have a one word sentence, it can't be why because that's too easy. Yes.
No, well, that's not a restriction in the A to Z. You can make up your own. You can call it the JB A to Z, but I'm
Yeah.
explaining to you the rules of the A to
Oh, okay.
Z. And
All
having
right.
not being allowed to use Y is not one of the constraints.
No, I mean, not being, well, getting into the weeds on it, but I was
Yeah.
thinking about that one word sentence and I was trying to come up
No,
like what
I
would
know what
be
you
a good
meant.
one word? But
You'd like to restrict which word can make up that sentence. I'm saying
yeah,
that's not a constraint of the A to Z.
yeah.
Yeah, you can
And
be your constraint, but it's not anybody else's.
yeah, it's not part of the rules.
Yeah.
And so okay, so here I am and I'm thinking I have all these ideas
Hmm.
and I want to feed in because there's a certain write what you know, which I more translate to write what you feel or what you felt,
Yeah.
right? And that also speaks to experience. And so I want to have a character um get into this experience because recently lost a parent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's brought up a lot of very complicated emotions, uh, as is wont to happen, I guess.
Hmm.
And so I want to have this character explore through story
Hmm.
those emotions. And so
Yeah.
I can set some limitations on that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, what other constraints could I do?
Well, you could constrain where this um, piece of writing takes place for the character, so it can become
Mhm.
a crucible. You could constrain which characters, if any, because it's
Mhm.
probably not just going to be this person thinking, right? That's
Right.
difficult to pull off if it's more than a couple of pages.
Right.
So even then, that could be difficult unless they're very interesting thinkers. So you
Hmm.
could constrain it by if it's a scene, who's the scene
Hmm.
with? Just pick a random other character, and you might constrain it by certain words you have to use, just random words you pick out of a hat.
Hmm.
I've done that when I'm teaching, and then you set the timer for 5 minutes and you
Hmm.
write it and you see what
Hmm.
happens. You can even
Yeah.
use something like the A to Z in the middle of a book, and nobody would know
Hmm.
you've done an A to Z because nobody looks at the first letter of sentences. Some readers who are weirdos like me might notice, but most
Yeah.
people won't. But what it can do is birth new insights because you're forced to start sentences differently than you normally would. There's a section in the middle of a David Mitchell book, The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Choate, and it's rhyming. It's a paragraph, and it's rhyming, but you wouldn't know it
Uh-huh.
unless you read it out loud in your head.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I like this. It's a way to break out of ruts, because we all fall into that, especially, whatever you do creatively, you have, these default phrases that you use or default
Hmm.
ways of starting a sentence or a paragraph or ordering or length and rhythm and all these kinds of things. And so part of this too isn't just about the constraints as it is trying to break you out of these rhythms or ruts that aren't serving you
Yeah.
and changing, thinking differently about the thing that you're trying to create or the method by which you create.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
trying to get a little bit more into the mindset.
Yeah. And so it can be form, like we're just discussing, and we're
Mhm.
talking mostly about particular types of writing forms. It can be form in other ways for other crafts or arts. It can be time. You give yourself a very limited time period to start the thing or to do the next chunk of the thing so that you are
Mhm.
forced to let your subconscious do a lot of heavy lifting because when you take away time, your conscious mind doesn't have time to dick around. If there's a timer going in the background, unless you're perverse, you're going to just
Mhm.
drop all your thinking and
Mhm.
get to what needs to be on the page. You can also
Now,
do,
a quick
Mhm.
question on that. Can time, instead of being your physical time, I'm going to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes
Yeah,
to do or what have you, can it be the time frame that the scene takes place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
It can,
happens
yeah.
over an hour or
Yeah.
2 hours.
It has to be in 5 minutes
Okay.
and they have to be doing something together. What are they doing? Washing the dishes? That's a
Yeah.
constraint.
And it
So,
has to be very meaningful.
well, it has to be whatever you want it to be, and then you see what comes out. So it's not, you're not imposing this necessity to make it meaningful as a constraint. You're imposing
Mhm.
constraints in order to do something meaningful.
Oh, to get to
So
the
it's the other way
meaningful.
around, yeah.
Okay.
And then the other constraint around materials is even like I'm thinking for writers. I just read this thing about former president of the U.S., Barack Obama, and he wrote 8 letters a night to citizens. People write to the president, I
Mhm.
guess. And so he would pick 8 letters every night and write a longhand letter back
Wow.
to each person and then copy it onto like on draft paper and then copy it onto the White House letterhead and then it would get sent out and for the thing I read was one of the people who received a letter said it changed his life. He was about to do something really stupid and that letter from Obama made him rethink it. And so
Made everybody think, huh?
yeah, so I think what Obama was quoted in that little article, he's saying as where's the effect of he always wrote them longhand because he felt it activated different
Mhm.
part of his system, and so it's more holistic, basically. So
Mhm.
I have a friend who does the 3-day novel every year, and one year she wrote it longhand.
Wow. That's a constraint that I already do because when I do my fiction writing for myself, it's always longhand.
There you go. Yeah, so you're
Yeah,
already
I
doing
think,
some of this
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And,
it does create a little bit of a mindset shift. And then, materials, again, with sort of the same question as with time, you can have limited materials that the characters are using.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
can, or, an unusual material perhaps, or something like that.
Yeah. Or you totally, and you can even think of words as your material if you're writing. So you could have one character only use a particular lexicon, like they don't, they never say certain words that you are habitually using when you write every character, because you just
Mhm.
take them out of your vocabulary. So you assign a particular vocabulary
Oh,
to a particular character. And anytime you find yourself, you pick it ahead of time so you're aware of these words, So you might
yeah,
have to scan over a couple of pages of your previous work and circle words you use repeatedly, no matter whose point of view you're in, and then just take out those words. You can't write them for that character and see what happens.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
experimental. It's not
Oh,
meant to be good.
yeah, no, I like that where each character has their own lexicon.
Yeah, that was a guy in Christ. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was some 18th century Paris writer, and he had a different lexicon for every book,
Mhm.
basically. And he said something along the lines of you could use a catalog from a lace factory
Huh.
and have a particular type of book if you only ever
Yeah.
use the words from that catalog.
Wow.
Like something like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So what we've got then are these three areas: time, form, materials.
Yeah.
And those are where you're looking for these constraints that you can put on.
Yeah.
And the idea is to constrain yourself as a way to spark a meaningful outcome for the
Yeah.
creative
Well, to
for the
even
piece you're
spark any
working on.
outcome. Because I think when some people get stuck, it's because they have all the room in the world and all the time in the world and all the ideas in the world. And, um, constraints force you to make decisions a lot more quickly.
Boy, and that's kind of one of the problems that I've been having is I'm great at ideas. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand writer's block from the perspective of not having ideas, right?
Mm.
That's not like I've never been like, "Oh, I don't know what to do next." What I have is lots and lots of ideas that come to me and no way or it takes forever to sort of figure out this is the right path forward.
Yeah. Well, I think consider trying some constraints to force your hand. So what if
Mhm.
you try constraint and then you write stuff and you're like I mean, you have to get into it. That's it. You got to commit to it. Once you establish a
Hmm.
constraint, you can't go, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't want this constraint. It's got to be um, fully engaged in. And I think what happens for me when I do stuff like that is I don't produce what I was expecting to produce. And I don't,
Hmm.
what it is that I have let go of my conscious mind because I'm just focusing, I'm using that to focus on the constraints. And
Hmm.
so that makes the rest of me show up. And what comes
Hmm.
out is way more interesting than if I just muscled through.
Right. And that's what I think maybe this is, generally true of everybody who's trying to create something is I'm trying to turn my conscious mind off
Yeah,
and get a little bit deeper into more of a flow state
yeah,
where, there's a certain maybe I've used my conscious mind to come up with the big idea, but the execution of it is more from subconscious and just being very in the moment with the work.
yeah. I
So,
would say
and
so.
then, yeah, and so then using a constraint or two or three
Yeah.
to help me be more in the moment. So maybe does it work in the way that your conscious mind is worried about the constraint, whereas it frees your subconscious to really act on the issue of the creativity?
Well, I don't know if I would say the issue of the creativity, and this, I'm just talking about how it works for me. I'm thinking
Hmm.
of the 72-hour novel writing contest that I've been doing every year for, it'll be 10 years plus a year way back. What that time frame does for me is force the decision making and remove the angst because nobody gives a shit if you win place or show. What the vibe of that contest is, the people who enter it are a wacky community who have a Discord channel and share recipes and go, don't forget to hydrate, and everybody stand up, take a stretch, And there's a guy who has a YouTube, and he's got a YouTube channel every year of him doing the 3-day novel, so you can watch him, if you're stuck or whatever, but you don't see his screen. You just see this guy at a desk, right? And so what that does is, for me, the fact that you only have such a limited amount of time to produce such a large number of words in a story, what
Hmm.
it does for me is, we were talking about this last week, is metabolizes my experience recently, usually. So I've written ones about all
Hmm.
kinds of shit that was happening. Some of them are set in outer space, so they're not biographical or anything. They're not
Hmm.
memoiristic. They're they're different than that. And yeah, I find that the feeling at the end of that is, A, you've written some 25,000 word novella in 3 days that you can then use for whatever you want. And
Hmm.
B, you might win some money and get it published. And C, there's this feeling when you complete a work that I think
Hmm.
is more intense when you complete it under duress. That's just I like a challenge, so maybe that's just my
Hmm.
nature, right?
Hmm.
But if I complete a novel over a 2-year period, the feeling of completion is not nearly as intense and satisfying as when I complete a novella over a 3-day period. It's just not the same. And
Right.
there's no shade to either one. I personally like constraints a lot. They really work for me. And I had a poet friend, Brandy, who had a tragic episode happen when she was a little girl. Her sister died,
Hmm.
and Brandy's arm, it was a car, a rock fell in their car, a boulder fell in their car, and the she was trying to write forever. I might have told you this already, about the nurse who came to tell her that her
No, no, I've not
sister had
heard this.
passed away. And Brandy was a little girl and was in the hospital cafeteria. And she tried to approach this moment. She's a poet, so in
Hmm.
a poem for a long time. And then she was talking to a poet friend of hers who said, "Why don't you try making it?" And I can't remember what form, could have been a villanelle. Why don't you try using form to help you?
Hmm.
And she wrote the most intensely moving poem using this
Wow.
particular form. And she just said that it made such a huge difference to have that form to bounce off, because then she could articulate within that form what she wasn't able to articulate without that form, without any form,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah, it gave her a structure within which it
to pour
what
her
what
heart, right? To
yeah.
pour her
Yeah.
emotions. Yeah.
Well, and I think we all have that experience of trying to create something and you know the feeling of it, but
Yeah.
you can't, it's hard to verbalize.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sort of describe, here's what I'm trying to create, here's what I'm trying to feel,
Yeah.
because it's in a sense beyond words, but you're also trying to put it into words. And
Yeah.
so
For
you need
writers, that's the
some
key.
way to,
Yeah.
yeah, or if you're an artist, you're trying to put it on a canvas or in a sculpture, or an actor, you're trying to, how do you hold your hands in a way that demonstrates, or your
Mm.
eyes, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so giving yourself a constraint as opposed to the opposite of just try anything, spaghetti against the wall, perhaps,
Uh-huh.
is going to help spark finding the right path, finding that way through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And can I just add, I already said it, but I want to emphasize it. It's
Yeah,
constraint plus commitment to the constraint.
right.
You can't
Hmm.
half-ass it.
Okay.
Like if
So
I
we have,
if so let's
go
say
ahead.
I'm on day 1.5 of the 3-day novel and I've got what looks like the beginning of a novel and then I just go like and it's good and I'm happy with it and I just go, you know what?
Mhm.
I'm gonna take 3 months and finish this off. That's
Mhm.
half-assing it, in
Mhm.
my opinion. Stick with the constraint.
Right. And and in terms of constraints, we're not talking about straitjackets, right?
No.
Things
No.
that limit. It's more about a way to break through a certain stuckness, perhaps.
Well, I don't know. You know, you can, I mean, it is limitation. It's limitation with the
Mhm.
purpose of greater freedom. So yeah, it doesn't
Mhm.
need to, you don't need to be stuck to use constraints, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Use
Yeah.
them
No, I like
anytime.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
use them anytime.
Limitations to a greater purpose.
Yeah, if they make if constraints make you, do more writing or whatever your art is, then use them every day if you want to. Seriously. They're not hard.
No,
They're
I like
better. They're more fun, right?
Yeah, 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 and you can have some fun with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like this. So sort of to sum, you have these three areas: time, form, materials to
Yes.
second grades, and you have to be, what was it? Um, Committed. What
Yeah,
was the
commit
other?
to it. Pick one
Yeah,
and
yeah,
commit. Pick a
pick one
constraint and commit.
and commit to it. And it's and I got to say, because I've not heard this, this is a very new conversation for me, right?
Okay, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, no, very, very new.
Oh,
And so that's why I'm having this, and trying to sort of figure it out.
yeah.
Uh, because, oftentimes when somebody says put a constraint on it, it's not like, oh, thank you. You've made it harder,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
so you're saying, no, this is about finding a different way to, you know, and I don't want to use something cliche like access your creativity, but it's about using constraints, like you said, to a greater purpose
Yeah.
to help
It's
break.
just changing things up. It can't
Yeah.
hurt. Like what's worst case scenario is you get a block of text, say if you're a writer, that you can't use, or
Uh-huh.
painting you don't like, or but follow through, see what happens. Treat it like fun because it is fun. Constraints are really, really fun, like they can be. And they can make you do stuff completely differently than you normally do, and that is a good thing. Like the A to Z, my sentences are not at my normal sentences because I have these. I never start sentences with certain letters. I just don't. So, I haven't done a scientific study of my own writing, but that's my impression is that when I'm doing an A to Z, I have to think differently. And then you can make it a fun little story if you want to. It can be a
Yeah.
standalone. I did an A to Z
Yeah.
once about the Scooby-Doo gang, and it made me laugh. I
That's good.
reversed it so it
That's good.
started with zoinks as the first word, and that was also a one-word
Oh,
word,
there you go.
one-word sentence. Zoinks.
All right, I like it. I like it.
Okay.
So this is good. And Pat Dobie, dominatrix of the art world, putting constraints
I
on
know I
everything.
come across as so hardcore. I'm really not. I'm just suggesting have some fun. Try different shit. You got nothing
Yeah.
to lose if you're an underachiever like we are.
Yeah. Put the furry cuffs on and see what happens.
Get the tickler. Asshole. There goes my reputation.
Yeah, well, you may be blowing up now.
You know what? You know what I wanted once was I was thinking it'd be fun to have like a service. Okay, so I used to rent offices in different parts of Vancouver, right? And I had this one office. I had this sort of foyer area that was basically just mine and one other person's. And I thought it would be cool to have like a large wooden chair with handcuffs that people could pay me to be handcuffed in with their book for an hour, and they couldn't get up. They have to go to the can before they sit down. I'd handcuff them, give them a pen and a piece of paper, or their notepad or whatever they're working with, and say, "Okay, go.
You've got an hour.
I'll be out every 5 minutes, and you won't know when I'm out and when I'm not out because I'll be behind you. So I want to see you writing. Don't stop." And then they pay me $100, and we're both happy. Wouldn't that be great?
That's awesome. That is literally creative dominatrixing.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
everybody, something new to try.
Good luck. Give me a shout. I'll help you out for
Yeah.
$100.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. Send your ideas for constraints to giftedunderachievers@substack.com. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you'd like to download your podcasts. And please hit the share and or subscribe button. It really does help. The algorithm is paying attention to these kinds of things. And as always, please have an awesome day.